Hi, my name is Joe. I run games. Today, I did a video on some session prep for Draw Steel, and I thought that was good. Level 4, pretty good. However, I have a new campaign starting, so let's just prep a level 1 campaign. We're gonna do some prep for the campaign, try to prep the first adventure, and just see how this goes. Yeah, and this is the process. I don't even think this is everybody's process, but it's my process. So let's see where we are with it. Where we are with it is the wrong campaign. The campaign that I'm starting here is called A Study in Effluence, and that should tell you a great deal about the kind of game it is already, right? Tower of Time. This is much more heroic. A Study in Effluence is pulpier. Yeah, it's sort of like Eldritch Pulp is kind of what I'm going for here, but this should still fit the Draw Steel rules very nicely because pulp heroes are bombastic and heroic and cinematic. They do all that stuff. So this should fit very well with like what are some other sort of pulpy adventure kind of things? Conan is pulp adventure. Obviously Indiana Jones, stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing I'm going for here, right? And maybe even just a little bit, we'll crank it up a little bit from there. But it is going to be unsettling. It's going to be just a little bit messy. We're going to be dealing with some body horror and stuff like that, or at least I hope so. So let's see where we are. I've got a document here for my PCs, right? And all this is just the players and their characters. I think only 2 of them have... No, I've got not one more has a name. What is the other guy's name? His name is Vanish. Vanish is a cool name. I have no name for the Null. I have no name for the, I think, Chronopath talent. We're going to find out. But I have a bunch of options down here for them. And this document will evolve as I go. I don't need anything for it right now. What I know about these characters is on the game document here. The Study in Effluence. We know that they came into town, and there was a local prefectus who was outed as being an undead spy working on behalf of the enemy nation of Rainmar to the south. And so now these 4 people who solved that mystery have a reputation for solving weird mysteries. And so people are going to come to them with more weird mysteries. Okay, that's fine. I have a document here for the sheets, but I think I'm probably going to use Forged Steel for the sheets here. I've got I have a map of the nation, which is pretty big. And then I have been working here via Incarnate. On the local area map, which right now is just a zoomed in version of the big map with, I've sort of scaled down some of the stuff. And we've got this local area here that is Fort Sinum, which is this military fort. So I think what happened here is that when Thessalon went to war with Rainmar, they just came through and just built a big wall, like a Hadrian's wall, that blocked them off from Rainmar, because Rainmar, obviously, you've got these gross fungus forests kind of creeping its way northward, and they were like, nope, none of that. And so they put a wall in here to block the oncoming waters, and that's what these forts do, is keep watch, and when something tries to push its way out, they push it back. And I think based on the coloration here, we can tell that Fort Rainwall is not doing as well as some of the other forts. That's okay. It's fine. That's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. And so this works exactly like it works in the real world, right? You put up a military fort, and then slowly a town, builds up around the fort because you need stuff. Not only do you need stuff, but the people in the fort have friends, they have family, people come to move here. They need a temple, they need a general store, they need something they can do when they're on leave, they need entertainment in town. So I think this town is going to have sort of like I'm thinking it's going to have a vibe that is somewhere between like a Wild West and a Carnival Row. That's kind of where I want it. I don't really know how to mix those yet, but that's where we are. I am not going to do map generation on this particular recording. I just wanted to talk through it. But a thing I do need is I need a starting adventure and I need a local area. And the local area comes before the starting adventure. So we're just going to go through here and map out what that starting adventure looks like and what the local area looks like. We'll just see where that takes us. All right, so many moons ago, back in 2019, MCDM put out this local area document. I think Jason might have done some of the art for this, now that I think about it. I don't remember exactly. It was quite a while ago that this document came out, but it was called My Campaign. They put it up on the Patreon. It's still there, so if you're a member of the MCDM Patreon, and you probably are if you give a shit about this, then you can go grab it. If not, I'm sure there's other places to find it online. I legitimately, it's not a product they sell, I don't think, so I don't think they care, who has access to it. It's just a thing they put out to help the community. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some headings from it and see what matters, right? It's got the world name of the dungeon master and what's this area called, and nobody cares about that. But there are some things we need to know in here, right? So what am I going to need in this area? Let's go here to, we'll go to heading 2, and we are going to go town, and I think the town is going to be separate from the fort. So, right? Like the fort is one thing, the town around the fort is another thing, so we're going to keep them separate. I am going to need some geography. We want to know what's going on in the surrounding area. Fine. We need the government, but not just the government, right? Because we also have a town here. So we need to know who's in charge of the government. But I think something that's going to be important is knowing who's in charge of the local business, right? I think that actually is going to be just as important as the government. There's an argument to be made that is part of the government, but I'm going to keep them separate just because of how stratified things are here. I want this feeling that the fort is the fort and the town is the town, and that way they can't appeal to the authorities in the fort and be like, this guy in town is, being mean to me or whatever. And the fort, the people in the fort, whoever, the pontifex at the fort or whoever is in charge there can say, look, my authority basically ends at the gates of this fort. So unless somebody in town is, blatantly breaking imperial law, or unless they are a threat to the military, you're on your own. Go talk to the people out there. And I don't know that this town has a proper government. I kind of like the idea that there are some nobility here who are vying for supremacy, some profecti, and so on and so forth. But I don't think there's like a mayor. I don't think there's like somebody over the town. I think whoever the what do you call the guy in charge of a legionary fort? Okay, so the pontifex. It's a pontifex that's in charge of the fort, I think, or is it a ductus? One way or the other. But I can look those up later. But we want to know what that's like the government, the local business. We want to know what the culture is like, right? And that is, who's here? What do these people do? Do they like dwarves? Are there dwarves here? Are there elves here? Are there polder here? Are there shpalo here? The worm whites, basically what I call my dragon knights, because my dragons are not knights. That kind of stuff. Who else is here, right? I have a PC, Revenant, and we already know these people don't like Revenants. I put it in the backstory. So that dude's not going to be popular, and that's okay. That's good. Gives him something to work against. So we need the culture. We are going to need to know, what is this? Control-Alt-2? Why have I not been doing that? We're going to need to know about the religion of the area. I know what religion is like in Thessalon on the whole. I have a bunch of gods. let's go over that real quick. Just the broad. These are the Thessalan gods, right? So we have Pius Mater Angrigora, who is the sky mother of Thessalan. We have Pegum Pater Orianos, who is the earth father of Thessalan. Husalucan and Artemis and Maya, and so a lot of these are like, this is a very Proto-Indo-European way of looking at gods, which is, just who I am as a person. Baus Coriaster. The people of Thessalan believe that the sun and the moon are the same thing. Actually, most people in this world believe that the sun and the moon are the same thing, because the sun goes across the sky and then the moon goes back across the sky. In fact, I think the sun and the moon are the same thing. I actually don't think they're wrong about that. But the people of Thessalan give it two different aspects. So it is Baus Sorena when it is going across the sky, and it is Baus Coriaster when it is going back across the sky. So we have all these gods here, and we have this big structure of the church with pontifical colleges, because I have stolen liberally from Rome. You know what? What's rude about this particular campaign setting is that I was working on this right when that meme happened, where they were like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And I got to tell you, never, until I started working on this campaign, and now, unfortunately, often. So I feel like I should be graded on a curve for that one. We have minor colleges here that people can belong to in your various positions within the church, and then we talk a little bit about dwarf religion and elf and polder and orc religion and various cults and stuff like that. So this is starting point for religion, so I have that. But what is it like in this area? Because they don't have all that, right? They probably just have a temple with maybe a priest who is in a college, maybe, if you're lucky. So let's talk about that. They're going to go to the temple. I do not have any conduits in this group. I do not have any sensors in this group, but they are going to go to the temple at some point, so I'm going to need to know what's going on there. So what else is on this sheet here? We have a slot for adventure, and that is, low-level monsters in the area, mid-level monsters in the area, the evil boss, stuff like that. I do need to know that stuff. And then an area for lore, which is just what do people know? What are some secrets? What are some things that nobody knows? This is good. I like this. Okay. Let's plug on. All right. So we start here with the fort. All right. So this fort is run by a praetor who is just some military leader, the military commander. The last time I deployed a praetor, he was this sort of retired field commander with a bum leg and a mush mouth who was pretending to be a racist in order to get access to the PCs so that he could have a private conversation with them. That was a fun surprise, but it doesn't work here. First off, I have mostly humans here, but also I've already done that. So let's just come up with a praetor here. I will. I've already done a male praetor, so I'll do a female. The Thessaly Legion is almost entirely human, but I could make it a dwarf. A dwarf would hate being here because it's wet and mushy. So, okay, so she's a dwarf woman. She's probably, maybe she's had like a bad career. Like this is a punishment assignment. And what do we need to know about her? So she's here. This is like an assignment that she has as like a punishment. We're gonna say that she joined the Legion after losing a commission in the Dwarven armies. So she's like been moved from army to army and loses commissions. Why do you lose commissions in armies? Generally, it's because you don't follow orders. You disrespect your superiors. So she is crass and disrespectful. Now we know who she is. All right, moving on. What else is going on in the fort? One of the things they have to have in this fort is they have to have architects and builders, because they've got a wall built on basically mush and loam, and they need to keep patching that thing. All these forts must have wall builders. Okay. And I suppose sappers, right? I mean, sappers generally are the people that like dig underneath and orchestrate the collapse of a wall, but they also know how to shore up a wall that is in danger of collapse. So that is what we've got here. We have a bunch of sappers. We must have quite a lot of scouts to go out into the murk and come back. Speaking of which, since I have coined a geography term, let's say the murk is the like the bits of Rainmar beyond the wall that are non-forested. We're talking basically soggy plains, soggy bottom plains. I am a man of soggy sorrow. All right, so we've got some soggy bottom plains, we've got the murk out there, and then we also have this mushroom forest that we need to name. Can we come up with a cute name for that? Can we the fungus? No, that's a terrible name. What would you call a mushroom forest? You might call it, let's call it the softwood. And that is the west. Fun thing about this setting, the sun comes up in the west and sets in the east. The moon comes up in the east and sets in the west. All right, now you know. Also of note, the seasons are of variable length. Not like Game of Thrones variable length, but kind of similar. Right? Like they kind of hang at about 90 days, but they can go somewhere in here. All right. So now we know a little bit about the surrounding area. So if we've got the Praetor and a bunch of architects, what do we have going on in the town? First off, I don't think that the town has the same name. So you go to Fort Sinum, that's the town, but I think they probably just call the town Sinum, right? Or maybe Sinum, what? Dale? Vale? Sinum... So let's see. Sinum is a garrison town. We can just call it Sinum, that's fine. The fort, I mean, you know, Cork is a garrison town and it doesn't have like a fancy name, right? It's just Cork. I would like a map of this town eventually, but for now, obviously the government is the Praetor in the base. And then under him, let's do a, I think they probably have a chaplain. Almost everything that happens in Thessalon, the church is integrated with. The church and the military are kind of the government. So he's got to have a chaplain there, probably by law. And then he will also have a, let's see, how do I want to handle the naming convention on this? He's going to have prefects under him, and probably a magistratus, magistratum, magistrati. Oh, whatever. We'll just say magistrate for now. See, this is how little I think about the Roman Empire, you guys. And then lictors as guards. And I think this guy doesn't need guards very often. Or this woman, I forgot. She doesn't need guards very often. So she's not very popular, so who are her guards? They must be loyal to her. So, they can't also be, or rather, she has to think they're loyal to her. We'll figure it out later, but I think there's 3 of them. There's probably only 1 magistrate. We'll say 2 prefects and 1 chaplain. All right. In the town, we have a temple. Out here, who do we like as a god for this temple out here? So here's the thing. You would think Elteros Maios, right? Elteros Maios, the god of the waters. But they're kind of out here fighting the waters, aren't they? They are trying to keep the waters at bay. So we could have it be the sun, but I think it's more likely to be a militant god. Probably Artemis. Artemis makes the most sense. Or Maya. Hermia Maya. Do we like a horse god or do we like a bear goddess? I think we like a horse god for some reason. I think we're just going to say the priest here is a member of the Liberos, and the temple is dedicated to Ecos Artemos, the horse lord. Dig it. All right. So, I don't know what you're talking about. It is still the same day. Obviously, I'm still wearing a gray shirt. Yes, okay. Mostly the same day. But I think the first thing we do is we need an adventure for these PCs. I'm going to do a session where they come together and we talk about, we get all their character sheets together. Their character sheets are 80% built, but I want to give them a once-over, get the sheets together, talk backstory, what happened before this, what is this previous adventure that you guys had, how did it go, who are your characters, how do they fit together. Once we know that, then we go right into adventure the first. So what do we need for a first adventure? We need bad guys. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the Draw Steel Monsters book. Again, still not 100% clear on how much of this I can show you guys. I could go ask, I guess. I probably should. But it's okay. You actually don't need to see the pages to understand the process. Because there's a lot of resources in this book. Let's have at it. So the first thing we need, if we are going to have an adventure, is we need to have some encounters. We need to have a bad guy. We need to have some minions that work with this bad guy. And we need those bad guys to be roundabout first level. Level 1, level 2, I can work in that range. So let's see what we've got here. Here's what I like. I may never get another option to use this, but the Draw Steel Monsters book has this amazing bad guy called a bread beetle. A bread beetle is a sort of cursed, ageless, I believe it is a giant thing, and it's got no head. So it wanders around and it plucks the heads off of its victims, and it puts those heads on top of its giant neck. And while that head is up there, it can move about and do things with your head. And you then have no head. You're just walking around with no head. That doesn't happen in any other game. And it's body horror, and it's got an easy cosmic horror tie-in. It feels very, unsurprisingly, Sleepy Hollow. So I think that is a good bad guy. Like, that's a good end boss for this first adventure. The bread beetle, people without heads, the PCs can go investigate like a barn somewhere with a headless person, and they just get up and their body starts walking around, and what are they going to do with that? This is going to be great. Good horror stuff. The bread beetle is it's a 3rd level solo. That is too potent for my current PCs, but that's okay. We can give them a juvenile bread beetle. We can give them a wee baby. We can give them some sort of a hamstrung, like a bread beetle that's damaged or whatever, and it only does some of its stuff. That's easy. But the question is, What's it doing, and who's it working with? Show me what you're working with, Bread Metal. Not ahead. I'll be right back. So, what we need to go with the Bread Metal are some level 1 villains. Fortunately, we can just do a Control F in here, right, for level 1, and it will start looking for, actually let's throw a space after that so I don't get level 10 or level 1 plus or whatever. Level 1, and it'll just start giving us level 1 dudes. So the first thing we have are some demons. I don't like that. I think this is too early to introduce demons, and also this isn't a demon hunting game. This is like a spooky cosmic horror kind of game. So we need something that is working with the Bread Metal that isn't outside of its wheelhouse, right? Can't be anything too tough, because if it was a demon, why is the demon not in charge? Even a tiny demon should be in charge of a headless giant. So the first option in here is just dwarves. Now these characters are probably not doing battle with dwarves. The dwarves in my world are have not allied themselves with Ajax because I'm not running an Orton, so less reason to have dwarf bad guys. But I can always reskin these dwarves as anything I want. Any sort of hardy, find and capture bad guy would work here. This is a possibility. I could use elves and sort of use them as a stand-in for any sort of weird foresty creature. So do we like the idea of like maybe forest fae or something from that mushroom forest working with the Bread Metal? Maybe it's encroached on their lands. This is a distinct possibility. Goblins are of course a classic adventure creature, low-level creature. I do feel like I would need to reskin them a bit, because I don't love the idea of just throwing random adventure goblins at these people. This needs to be I feel like one of the things that's going to separate this game out as like a sort of investigative horror version of Draw Steel. I think one thing that's going to separate it out from a regular Draw Steel game is going to be that there is a lot more investigation, a lot more negotiation, and a lot less going from adventure to adventure slaughtering things with weapons. There will be some slaughtering things with weapons, but I don't think it's going to be the focus. So I need to be prepared to give these people victories in other ways and challenge them in other ways, which is tricky actually. Draw Steel, it's so easy. Like if you just want to be like, here's 4 fights and a negotiation and a hazard and an investigation and boom, that's a level. Like that's easy. So let's see. If nothing else, I can use the goblins and turn them into like maybe little mushroom creatures, little fungoids, something like that. There's obviously humans in here, and humans are a great bad guy. They're the best bad guy. So there's always the possibility of humans. I think I want to save that for later, though. I love the idea of like humans pretending to be some sort of a terrible villain. Kobolds, of course, basically the same as goblins here, excepting that goblins are a little shiftier and kobolds are a little teamworkier. Fighting kobolds is kind of like fighting a tiny army. Love all these kobolds in here, though. Lizard folk, same thing. Easy to displace in the swamp or the gross fungal forest. Same with orcs. So I definitely have. But I think it's Raiden White. Yeah, I like Raiden Whites. I like the idea that the Bread Metal has displaced Raiden Whites out of their warrens, and now they're like swarming out and causing trouble in places where they would not historically cause trouble. I also like this because it gives me a nearby red and white village that I can use for NPCs. Because these are not, the red and whites are not, they're not like the Skaven. They're not like rat people from, other settings, Warcraft and such places. They're really, if anything, they're a little roguey, they're a little swashbuckly, but also quite alien, which I think will serve my purposes here. So let's go with red and whites. So let's start working on an adventure here. Let's see. So this is the bread battle, this is the red and whites, and we are going to call this. So we're going to call this I can't smell a rat. Because I have no nose. Get it? Because the nose is... You get it. Alright, so we're going to go into Draw Steel here. Chapter 15 for the director. There's a heading for creating adventures, and we are going to see what Draw Steel has to say about how to create Draw Steel adventures. Alright, so it says normal stuff, right? Every good adventure needs a villain. And it has very good advice about that villain, which is they have to do something. It's not enough that they just be there and be bad. They have to be doing something bad. So we've got the bread battle, taking heads. This is a good start, but we got to make it more personal than that. It's got to take someone's head, someone they got to like, which means they have to like someone. So we're going to start with this. The bread battle. Right, and he is taking heads. Someone we like. Okay, so we need someone we like, and then we need red and whites. Okay, so somewhere during the red and white part of this adventure, what we're going to do is we're going to go investigate some missing heads, and then be like, I don't know, right? Just a missing head is a big question mark. There's nothing to be done with that. So what then? Then we go after the red and whites, right? We hear that there's, we tie those two things together somehow. The PCs go after the red and whites. Are they saving someone from red and whites? Maybe the red and whites have taken someone captive. This might be nice. The red and whites take a prisoner, and they will trade this prisoner back in exchange for help with the bread battle. This is possible. This is possible. And it plays into their dramatic nature a little bit. I like this. Okay, this is a possibility. Let's keep going. Our villain needs a goal, right? So he needs sins and goals. Let's mark those down. Keep going. So either it has taken on the shape of the red and white leader and it's sending the red and whites out to do something, it's bidding, or maybe it has taken over a nearby farm and the family there is maybe being held captive. That'd be interesting. Let's put a pin in that for now, because either way, our first encounter is with red and whites, so that'll be fine. So maybe, I like this. I like the farm, though. I like this. So the someone we like is, farm family. Doesn't matter what their names are. I'll make up names for them later. So what happens here? Okay, so I think I've got a general plot here, right? And then the red and whites are the red and whites are being used as a distraction and a source of power for the bread battle. The head stays on it for 24 hours. So let's think about how to make this work. We've got a farm family nearby. They reach out to the PCs and they say, hey, you solve weird problems, we've got a weird problem. And something to do with the red and whites. We'll figure out what the red and whites are doing later. We'll figure that out when we get to a map, a good map. there's something going on our farm with these rat people. We can't figure it out. Maybe the bread battle was going through Raiden White, using their heads, right, to try to like infiltrate and get his way up to the head of the Raiden White village. He wasn't quite there yet, and so now he's like, well, people are also good. So what happens is when the PCs go out there, he has already infiltrated this family, or maybe he. I think maybe the idea is he infiltrates the family after. Yeah. Okay. So, what do we have in the plot here? So they investigate the family farm. They drive off Raiden White raiders or whatever. Then the bread battle, spelled correctly, goes to the farm. Takes over the father, mother, the PCs. Go back to that farm for whatever reason. Maybe they're in communication with one of the kids there. And what they find is either on the way. I like after. No. Okay, so they go back to the farm. They're like, everything's fine now. The people at the farm they're acting cagey, but nothing that we can put a pin in. Then the PCs encounter the headless body of the father/mother/uncle, and they're like, holy crap, what do we do about this? That's as far as I've gotten so far, but that's a start. That's a good start. All right. So now what we need to know is what the actual goal of the bread battle is, because, you know, in the book fiction, they are, and I might edit some of these rules here. I might give him more than 24 hours, right? The 24 hours is a really good metric for PCs, because what that means is, if this thing puts your head on its neck and it can run around looking like you have 24 hours to get it back on. The race is on, right? This is whoop, doo, 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 doo. So the whole point of the 24 hours is to give a PC who is beheaded 24 hours to get their heads back on. That's cool. I want to do that. However, it doesn't have to be 24 hours, you know, outside of combat. I don't have to stick to the 24-hour thing. That's fine. Or I could just say 72 hours. I have a slower moving game, right? This is not a fast-paced action adventure game. This is sort of a creeping horror game. So I can up that to 72 hours. It's no big deal. That is what we call a nothing change. That change does not impact the difficulty of the creature. It doesn't impact the challenge that it poses. That's just a nothing change. Do that all the time, whatever. I do it a lot. That's basically the same as reskinning as far as I'm concerned. So I like the idea that it is doing this thing at the farm. So let's find us, first off, let's see if we can find a farm. This is Chain Pico. I love their maps. So let's just look for farms, see what we got. I like this apple orchard, but I've already used this apple orchard very recently. It's fine. It's fine. Let's look for some related maps here. I like this. This looks more like an inn. Let's see if they have something for me that feels a little bit more like a farmhouse. That's airships. These are stables. Oh, this is good because this is sort of a wet area. The area they're in is already wet. So I like the idea that it's maybe, you know, rice fields. That's a little dark for what I had in mind. I haven't actually said what time of year it is yet. That's all the way underwater. That's too much water, I think, for my purposes. I love this, though. I love that the first time they go here, you know, we've got these like day and night maps, and then maybe the next time they arrive, you know, things are less pleasant. Um, or if they, like, I've got these, like, bloody maps, so I can be like, well, you know, you guys let this problem go too long. These are possibilities. Okay. So we're going to come to this farm, you know, investigate, and I think maybe eventually we're going to have a fight with the bread metal here. And I like that. I like the idea that, you know, we've got these, like, splashy water areas to work with that are probably going to be difficult terrain. And also, I will give penalties, like you'll take a bane on stealth right in the water here. Because, of course you will. You're splashing around all over the place. So I like that. That gives me some interactive stuff. Okay, I like this. Let's go with this one. I am on their Patreon, so I'm just going to go download the map. You guys don't have to watch that bit. Okay, so we've got one of those. Now, what we need is a red and white village now. That's not going to be called a village on here, right? Anything that I would want for red and whites is going to be called, like, caves, maybe? Or lair? Let's see what we got. No. Okay, so this is under the Hippogriff Postal Center, but this has a lot of potential, right? I would need to throw some little buildings in there, but I can do that. This actually isn't bad. Oh, look at that! Yeah, we got the little rivers there. Okay, I don't hate this. I'm gonna grab this one just in case, and then see if we can find anything else. I also really like this secret cave. This kind of feels like a place that, you know, you got the rat people that can, like, hang outside, and then there's all this interior stuff for them to do. You got the nighttime here. You got the pumpkin spice version right here. The lightless version. This is like a desert version, but that's not where we are. Misty night kind of stuff. What do we got? Misty night, haha. Ooh, we got like a more watery version. Here's the waterfall. I like the waterfall, actually. So maybe this is it. Because you can do cool shit with a waterfall, right? And I mean, the Raiden Whites, they are very bombastic. They're very much bon vivants. Cat. So, you know, they'll kick your ass right off a waterfall. That sounds cool. Yeah, I'm going to grab this. I think that gives us enough to work with. We'll go from here. So, hey, good news. I heard back from MCDM, and they're like, yeah, go ahead. We like when people do, you know, talk about Draw Steel on screen. So I'm just going to throw some art out here. In the meantime, let's talk about the bread metal. Last time we knew he needed sins and goals, and I think what we are doing is, as far as sins go, right, so he's going to drive the Raiden Whites out of their mushroom forest, and he's taking over a farm and killed the head of the farm. So what does he want? First off, I think he wants his own mushroom kingdom. That's good, but it needs to be more personal. So the bread metal, I think, is looking to breed. Not like, you know. But I think what we're going to say is what he needs to do is find someone that is compatible with him, put their head on, and when a compatible head, and I don't know what compatible means in this case, and I don't care, but when it falls off, then it is going to become the bread metal baby, right? It's going to fall off, and it's going to sprout little tiny arms and legs, and it's not going to cry because it's got no head, but you get the idea. So I think that's the thing he wants, because then, you know, so he finds these Raiden Whites, goes through a ton of them. Maybe he gets a little smarter every time because some of the brains stick around, and what he realizes is rat heads ain't it. So he's like, oh, I need something smarter. So now he's going to find these humans. He's come to the farm. He's tried on one of these heads. It doesn't work, but now he's smart enough that he's like, I think I can probably figure out I think I can probably figure out which head it is, right? Maybe he tests them, however that happens. Maybe there's some sniffing involved, or maybe he has to like feed him a special thing. I don't know, whatever's gross, right? This is the whole point here, is to upset some PCs. I mean, not edgelord upset some PCs. It's not going to be fetuses or anything, but it'll be something. It'll be, maybe a special concoction he makes, or maybe it's he has to smell something. That's why he needs the head. He has to sniff it out of them, Jeepers Creepers style. Like wait till they're scared and then smell it in the pheromones or the air or whatever. That might be cool. Whatever works. I don't care. And then he's going to take the one that's compatible back to his lair. Why? Because that way, when the PCs go back, they can be like, it's stolen our something, son, daughter, goat, whatever it is, whoever the PCs bond with in this place, right? We'll make up a couple of NPCs, whoever the PCs bond with, that is going to be what we do. So let's take a look. We got some cool Raiden White art here. I think what we're going to do here is we have some cool basic Malice features on the Raiden Whites, right? And that is, what is this? This is cool stuff. Trouser cut? If the target is wearing clothes covering the lower half of their body, they must use a maneuver once to pull up the clothing before they can move. That's so badass, you guys. I love that so much. Okay, so definitely this is going to be a fun fight. It's going to be a fun first fight. That's good, because it'll set the tone like, this is going to be, kind of fun. Little creepy, also kind of fun. And then it's just going to get weirder and grosser and scarier from there. And that's a good arc. I love that. All right, so we got some ambushers here, right? We got some artillery, some defenders, some harriers, some brutes, some support. So we got ambushers right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the ambushers, right? Bring those guys in. Now those guys are minions, so they can't unfortunately do that cool trouser thing. So I'm going to do a Piper, a Bruxer, some ambushers to start with, and then if need be, I will throw in some artillery, just pinioning the area. Pinioning? Is that the right word? Pinioning? I don't think it is. I'm right. That's not the right word. They will just pepper the area. To pinion someone is to stop them from moving. Not what I meant. Anyway, so then after that, we have some encounters with the Bread Battle. God, I love this dude. He's just I love the fact that this is just a huge dude, and then this head is just so tiny on his huge body, and I love that that's going to work for him. Love that for him. Slay King. All right. Bread Battle Malice, right? This is all cool stuff that this dude can do during a fight. Now, I'm going to have to scale him down a little bit, but that's okay. We can do that. So maybe what we'll say is this Bread Battle is weakened because it is pouring energy into the act of breeding. Nobody tell Muhammad Ali, but... So we're going to start with the Raiden White encounter. Real quick, just in case anybody's curious about how this stuff gets organized, I've got a whole thing in here. This is all maps for games. I just pulled out the stuff that I needed. Go into my Draw Steel folder. I've got one folder here for the Raiden White Caves, one folder here for the Rice Farms, and I just put the parts of the maps that I might use in here. That's all. That's how I keep this stuff organized. I like the idea that the PCs will come in and there's already going to be Raiden Whites here at the farm. And what I think is we're going to have some in the rice fields here with like, what do you call it? With like bamboo straws that they're breathing out of, right? So we're going to have some in the water hiding. And then they have been basically booted out of their mushroom kingdom. They are hungry. So one of the things they're doing is looking for food. This rice harvest isn't probably ready yet. I haven't decided exactly what season it is. Let's find out when rice harvesting season is. So rice gets harvested late summer through late fall. So let's call this early summer. The rice is growing, clearly as evidenced by the rice in these fields here, but it's not ready to be harvested yet. So the Raiden Whites come in here and they're like, shit, we were looking for food and we haven't found any. So we've got a broken paddock over here already on the map. So we can have some of them trying to lead away a bull. Over here this appears to be, oh, this is a mill, obviously, for like grinding stuff down. So this is probably on a rice farm. That would be for husking the rice, getting the husks off the rice. This is probably not in use at the moment, so we can hide some Raiden Whites in there. We have a dog here that can be barking, right? And I think most of the family are hiding inside because remember, there's no bread metal here yet. And then we've just got this appears to be a chicken coop, actually. So also we can have some stealing from the chicken coop, especially because that can be like both awesome and hilarious, right? Like you go in there and you can have a situation where one of these, because these guys they're not rats really, right? They're rodent people. So you can have one that's got like, 3 eggs in each side of his jaw, right? Like he's got the cheeks puffed up with eggs in them. That can be a hoot. So let's go with that. And one of the things I want to stick with is I like the idea that during the day we have things are pretty nice, and then at night is when we get our cosmic horror on. So this encounter, daytime encounter, get people used to the combat system and make that work. So we need some Raiden Whites. We are just going to insert a page break here, and I'm just going to bring over some Raiden White stats. So first, let's talk Raiden White Malice features. Right, we've got trouser cut, which I love. I'm just gonna take this wholesale. I don't see any reason not to use it just as is. Trouser cut, 2d10 plus 2. We're just gonna tab this over. 3 Malice main action. Target is 1 creature, so just do a little bit of reformatting on here, right? The range here is melee 1, and these are just the tiers, and I see no reason not to stick these with 1, 2, 3. I could use the fun iconography that they have in here, but it's just not necessary. I think in the Draw Steelbook they have like one is like a square and then a star and then maybe a 7-pointed star or an 8-pointed star, something like that. So, but this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. Right, we'll call this. We'll just bold this so I know what to look for, and we'll bold the effect, bold the special. Fine. This ability can't be used by a minion, which is sad, but that's all right. For 5 Malice, we have Rat Race. Each Raiden White in the encounter shifts up to their speed. If a Raiden White ends this shift adjacent to one or more Raiden Whites, they can make a melee free strike against each enemy adjacent to them. Oh, I see. So if it ends this shift adjacent to like a group of Raiden Whites, then they can also attack the enemies who are adjacent to them. That's really cool. That's a good one. I like that one. So we're just going to grab that. Come on. The thing about these Malice effects, you guys, just use them. And again, I know this has been said before. Just use them, and your players will think you are awesome. Because, and this is Rally the Rodents. Raiden White uses music to coordinate living rats, forming a 10 wall of rats scurrying atop one another into unoccupied space anywhere on the encounter map. Doesn't block line of effect for Raiden Whites at their rallies, but it does for other creatures as the rats coordinate their movements with the Raiden Whites. You guys, that's so cool. Okay, if the last Raiden White in the encounter dies and the wall is still staying, the rats let out a hideous screech as they disperse. Each enemy in the encounter map makes an intuition test, 7 sonic damage, 5 sonic, no effect. Nice. That's like a good fuck you on the way out the door. You know what, actually, this is a good point. I can shorten this up quite a bit. Good. And now we're going to grab this Rally the Rodents effect, which is cool. Now this is going to be particularly harsh, this wall, because if anybody fails real bad, the target can't take a respite activity during their next respite. That's like the first respite we have. Woo! Okay, fine. It's fine. No big deal. Alright. Then we are going to have some Mischievers here. Raiden White Mischiever. Mischievier. You know what? I am actually going to do this. I am actually just going to copy and paste these straight in there. Yeah, why on earth wouldn't I do that? That's just so much easier. Scrunch this up a little bit. You know what? Let's make a little room. We're going to make a little room. Make room. Recup, recup, move down. And now I have room to put my 2 red and white dudes in here. So there's that one, and then let's bring in the artillery. And now we're going to bring down the Piper and the Buxer. I'm sorry, the Bruxer. I didn't realize there was an R there. He's a Bruxer. He's Bruxum. Looks good. All right. Is there anything else I need to know about this encounter, or can I just run with it? Well, first off, we should do the encounter math. All right, a couple of things to remember. Non-minion creatures can use a main action and a maneuver on their turn, while minions can choose between one or the other. I always forget that, so I'm going to write it here. And remember, grab, hide, and knockback. These are always useful maneuvers. And let's make sure we spell maneuver correctly, because otherwise I'm going to make fun of myself when I read my notes later. Oh, actually, before I do that, we should take a look at the encounter objective. Well, first off, we do want to stop them. I think the encounter objective here, you want to stop them taking the stuff as much as possible, and then you kind of just want to scare them off, right? We don't have to kill every one of these guys, probably, once the minions are gone, or once the Bruxter is either the Bruxter or the Piper is gone and the other one is run off or otherwise out of the combat, the minions are going to flee. So that's where we are. We don't have to like scorch the earth here. So now we choose our encounter difficulty, right? And yes, James tells us that this is not a science, and he's right. We want this to be a relatively easy encounter, actually, right? An easy encounter is worth 1 victory. We don't want to make this too terrible, so we're going to determine the encounter strength, right? Okay. So calculate the party's ES. First, determine each hero's encounter strength. This starts as a baseline of 4, to which you add 2 for each level of the hero. Okay. So these are first level heroes, so they are going to be 6 apiece. Then add the encounter strength of all the heroes together. I'm going to have 4, right? 6 times 4, 24. 4 heroes, first level, 24, just like it says on the chart. Okay. We factor in victories. There will be no victories. I don't need to factor them in. So now we have to figure out our encounter budget. Easy encounters have a budget of anything less than the party's ES, but more than the budget for a trivial encounter, which would be basically their ES minus 1 hero. Right? So somewhere between 18 to 24. Okay, so let's do this. 6. The Piper is 6. The Red Eyes, 3 per 4 minions. The Mischievers are 3 per 4 minions, which means that if I just run with what I've got here, right? So that's 6, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, which means I can add some stuff in. So I have 2 options here. I could add 1 more Bruxter, I could add more minions, or I could add some dynamic terrain. I actually can't think of any good dynamic terrain to add. What do we got here? This Piper has 30 stamina, this Bruxter has 40 stamina. I think I need more minions. Let's see, what do I have to work with here? 24, so that just means that I can have 2 of each if I need to. And this is good to know. This range is good to know, right? So just this, Bruxter, Piper, Red Eyes, Mischievers, is a trivial encounter. If I add these minions, because these people don't really know how to play this game that well yet, I can leave these minions in reserve, right? And if I start getting to the point where it seems like I need them, they pop up out of the water, they crawl off a roof, something. And if I don't need them, that's fine. I can just make it a slightly easier encounter, no big deal. I probably will need them though. Given my history with this game, I think these people are going to catch on to it pretty quick, and the only reason I might not want to add the other minions is to help them gauge the system. But the thing is, man, especially like, what do these have? 3? Yeah, especially these Red Eyes, these things are going to drop fast. So I can always throw more artillery in, because all it's going to take is one good ranged attack from any of these characters to knock 2 or 3 of these minions out. So I think that's a really good one to use. I'm going to lean towards the red eyes. Like in this order, I'm going to lean towards the red eyes and then bust out more mischievers later. Makes sense, because the mischievers are obviously hiding, causing mischief, right? Maybe they're in the chicken coop. Maybe they're buried underneath the chicken coop, looking for the chicken poop. I don't know what they do with chicken poop. I don't even want to think about it. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the bread metal, and I'm just going to scale it down, right? So here's my bread metal page. You can tell because it's called the bread metal page. I'm going to add the malice on here. I actually don't know that I'm going to end up using the bread metal malice. I might want to use it though. So let's see what our options are, right? Give me a second to clean up. So let's go over it real quick. N green, 3 malice. The axe lengthens and turns a ghastly green, granting a +1 bonus to the distance of melee strikes and the dimensions of their burst area abilities until the end of the turn. This is good because it's one guy, right? So sometimes sometimes you're like, I'm just a little too far away. Good. All right. 5 malice, shadow stockade, a ghostly size L stockade seeps out from under the bread metal's feet to fill an unoccupied square. A stockade? Really? So a stockade is, you get this, right? You get in the stocks, right? Goes around your neck and your arms, and you're kind of stuck in it. This is nice though, because I can use this to telegraph, right? I can put someone into a stockade, and then he can like line up the axe, and and you can slide that creature around. That's cool. Okay. 5 malice solo action, takes an additional main action on their turn. They can use this feature even if they are dazed. I love that. 7 malice green phantom, a phantom second bread metal phases into view. I'm actually going to remove this. For this encounter. It doesn't make any sense. This guy is, the whole point is that this guy's alone and he's trying to enhance himself, so I don't like the idea that he can pull in phantom bread metals. Doesn't make any sense to me. So now we're just going to go down here, and this guy's a whole page. He's a whole vibe. I'm going to take the bread metal over here. I'm going to put it over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get most of the bread metal in here, and then we're going to come back and figure out how we can scale this guy down. All right, so right out the gate, size 2, obviously we're keeping, right? Especially since that size is variable based on the appearance it's wearing. But eventually, they will see its true form. Speed 5, yes. Stamina, look, the bread metal's got 300 stamina. I just used a 300 stamina minor god against a 4th level party, and they barely scraped by on this thing. And honestly, it just took so long to wear the stamina down. Now, it wasn't a solo. It was more of a boss. But still, that's a lot of stamina. They're never going to come close to that. So we're going to have to change that. Stability of 4. Here's the thing about a stability of 4. I like it, but I'm going to call it a 3 because then they have a chance to move this thing. Right? At level 1, they have no chance to move this thing if its stability is 4. Not unless they are geared toward it. And even if they are, I don't think they're going to move it much. The free strike here is 6. That is too much for a level 1 party. We're just going to call the free strike 3. It's not going to come up very often, but there you go. Okay. Might 3, agility 2, reason -3. Awesome. Intuition 2, presence 2. Here's the thing though. I actually need this reason to be higher because it is getting smarter. So we're going to call it -1, and to make up for that, we're going to say that its intuition is down to a 0. So what's happening is it is getting smarter, but it's getting desperate. So the intuition is going down. I like this. It's still the same amount of vulnerable to their attacks. It's just the reason isn't quite so in the gutter, and it's still bad, right? It's still really dumb. Even a smart bread metal is real dumb. So this is pretty good. Okay. The bread metal also gets all the stuff any solo gets, which is at the end of the turn. They can take some amount of damage. In this case, it's 5 unsoakable damage to end any save ends, effect, or condition. And they get solo turns, which means they get 2 turns per round, which they must take non-consecutively. Hold that thought. You guys ever had Yasso bars? This one is the cookies and cream. It's good. Probably good. like 100 calories. Okay, what else we have here? Heady or not. This is how the bread metal puts a head on its head. Totally cool. A creature must succeed on a hard might test made as a maneuver to rip a head off the bread metal. If they fail, the bread metal can make a free strike against them, which makes sense. Obviously, we keep that. That's fucking fantastic. That's fucking fantastic. We are going to increase the head duration to what? 72 hours? A week? 72 hours sounds good to me. I don't really know the pace of this game yet, but now I'm typing one-handed. Okay, I have my hands back. 72 hours, decision made. A creature must succeed on a hard might test made as a maneuver to rip the head off the bread metal. If they fail, the bread metal can make a free strike against them. I like this because it means you don't have to kill the bread metal to get your head back. Good. Resilient form, great. Just means they can't be physically transformed except by the heady or not trait, which is an excellent ability for a shape changer to have. Also, kind of a fun way to pick them out of a crowd, maybe. Okay, I actually do need to know all this stuff. 2 burst, does 2 damage, and what I need to do is just reformat this a little bit. 2 damage, agility less than 1, your bleeding save ends. 4 damage, agility less than 2, your bleeding save ends. 5 damage, agility less than 3, your bleeding save ends. Might less than 2, you're dazed, save ends. And then for 3 malice, he can shift 2 squares and can target additional enemies. I'm just going to take away this malice ability. And then I think that brings this thing in line with a lower level enemy. That does mean that I'm not necessarily but there's like a lot of stuff here to spend malice on, right? Like the lop action, which I'm probably going to want to do, is going to cost malice. You cannot cut your PC's heads off and put them onto the head of a giant in any game. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try my damnedest to do it in this game. Okay, so Lop, we got to keep through the magic of reformatting and the internet. 9, 13, 16 damage bleeding. Let's take a look at the stamina of a first level character versus a third level character. A first level melee-ish character has on average about 27 stamina. So if we cut this damage down by, not half, we still want it to be scary, by less than half, right? But let's call it 5, 9, and 11. That's going to still be pretty scary for these characters, but they should be able to survive it. A beheaded character can survive without their head for 24 hours. I like this. The character can survive without their head for 24 hours. The bread metal can hang on to it for 72 hours. I still like the 24-hour timer for the characters, right? The bread metal can just hang on to it longer. I don't have a problem with that. That does mean that there is a possibility that if you see a bread metal with a head, you can't save that person. Good. I'm trying to evoke some horror in this game. Okay. Good. Fine. That's what it's for. All right. So that was a big help. I like Lop as it is now. What is this? Scramble. While the bread metal is headless, they shift up to their speed. Each time the creature comes adjacent to the bread metal during the shift, the bread metal can push that creature 1 square. Each square the bread metal exits during that shift is difficult terrain. I'll tell you what. That's a lot of difficult terrain. It's difficult to track. It's a neat maneuver. What is it doing, though? I mean, it's basically helping the bread metal get out while it's headless. I'm going to skip it for now. I might need it later, but this is a weak one. This 5 malice ability is called Headway. The bread metal must have a head in their possession, attached to them or not, which they throw at the target. If the head was attached, the bread metal is left headless. This is good. This is just giving it a ranged attack, right? And it kind of is in desperate need of a ranged attack, and I like the idea that it's got to sacrifice a head for it. So now we will perform magic formatting. Ta-da! I have magically formatted, reduced the damage. I like the might range there. I actually could drop this might range, and that will make it, I think, even a little bit, because nobody in my party is going to have a might of 3. It's impossible. So while I'm at it, I think I'm going to drop all these ranges. And actually, one of the things I've noticed is, my job is not to wreck these people. They like it when I'm like, "Ooh, you're going to be prone. What's your might?" And then they say 2, and I go, "Aw, shucks," right? They love that. So yeah, do that. Keep that in there. 2 malice, envious imitation. I love that, but I'm going to get rid of it for this one. And then we've got the villain actions. Number 1, turn green. Targets turn green. When they turn green, green shadows crawl out from under the bread metal's feet and turn each target green. The bread metal has a double edge on power rolls against any target turned green in this way. I like turn green. It's a good villain action. I'm just going to give him a standard edge, though. Here we go. Magic formatting. Has an edge on power rolls against any target turned green in this way, except it's an edge, not an edge. Okay. I also lowered the potency of this ability by 1, same reason I said before. All right. Challenge. Villain action 2. The bread metal points to the target and issues them a challenge. If the target refuses, they turn green until the end of the encounter. Cool. If the target accepts the challenge, the bread metal shifts adjacent to the target, who makes a might test with no additional modifiers. Wow. If they fail, boom, beheaded. If they score a medium success, the target makes the test again. If they roll very well, the target can choose to deal 40 damage to the bread metal or remove the bread metal's head. I'm keeping this. This is super badass. It's thematic. It's fun. And you'll notice none of this kills the target. This is a villain action that is so cool, but it literally cannot kill you. I love everything about it. Magic formatting. That's amazing. All right, I like it. Let's take a look at this. Villain action 3. We're probably going to have to edit this one heavily. Let's take a look at it. This is called Headlam Rampage. Melee strike with the weapon. Melee 2 any 4 creatures in the area. On a bad roll, 6 damage, bleeding, or beheaded. 7 damage, bleeding, or beheaded. 8 damage, bleeding, or beheaded. So this is nuts. So the damage is now 4, 5, 6. The potency is lower and beheaded. I almost feel like maybe I'm going to limit him to 2, right? Because the thing is, like, he can only hold on to so many heads. Actually, I don't need to say any of that. The agility is going to take care of it for me. Plus, it's an or, so I can choose if they're bleeding or beheaded. So that works for me. So basically, now the thing we need to take a look at is the stamina. A werewolf is a level 1 solo, it has 200 stamina. An Eryx is a level 1 solo, it has 200 stamina. That seems to make things pretty simple for me. I'm just going to give the bread metal 200 stamina and call it good. The only other thing I might add to this is I might add the bread metal's lair. If they go to the lair, I'm going to add probably some toxic plants and some brambles to the area. Just basic brambles. I'll make the toxic plants pretty obvious so they can avoid them, but maybe get shoved into them. And that's kind of it. So let's take a look real quick at the shape of this adventure, right? Okay, the PCs investigate the family farm. They drive off red and white raiders. Fine. After they leave, the bread metal goes back to the farm. So what's going to happen here, and I didn't say this, they're going to go home, right? They're going to talk to folks, role play, etc. They're not going to take a respite here. They've got one victory. They know they're still in the adventure. Okay, they want to keep that victory. They're going to go back out to the farm for whatever reason. I'll invent a reason. Probably back here in the role play. Give them a reason to go back up to the farm in the role playing area. In the meantime, the bread metal has gone over there, taken over somebody's face, right? Taken over somebody's body. They go back to the farm. Everybody's acting cagey, but the thing they went out to the farm for is going to give them a reason to go back towards the town, right? And it doesn't have to be a big reason. It can be like, hey, I heard you were going out there. Can you pick up my groceries? I don't care. Just go check on this thing. That way they have a reason to go out there, come back. On the way back, they locate the body of this person. What they're going to do is they're going to turn right back around and go back to the farm. If they do, they can fight the bread metal. Or if they don't go straight back, the bread metal takes someone they like, heads off to his lair. When they go back into town, they get more concrete information. Maybe a book is delivered entitled Bread Metals and You, Why Are You So Dumb? Something like that. And then they're going to be like, oh shit, back out into town. If they have to go back out into town, then it's going to be there's going to be a montage test to get to the lair. There's probably going to be a mushroom forest fight along the way to give them some extra victories, and then the final showdown, the ultimate showdown of Ultimate Destiny. Boom, 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 boom. If they manage to fight off the bread battle at the farm, it probably tries to get away. And truth be told, it will get away because it's got way more stamina than them. So if this thing, if this thing hits 100 stamina and decides to run, it's going to run. They can't stop it. So then I can always give them a reason to go back out to the lair anyway. So when they're at the lair, they're going to discover that this thing was trying to make little bread battle babies. Maybe there's another one out there, and then they have to decide whether to kill it. That's pretty gross, but we'll see. And I can also give them some sort of information or loot or something out in the lair that leads them to another adventure, or maybe they can use as a starting point for an adventure later on. So that's it. That's the shape of the thing. I'm going to throw together some details. I'm going to throw together one more map, but that's it. So here's what we have done. We have gone from having the idea of 4 characters and a rough location in the world, and we have created a starting area and a bunch of NPCs. We've created a starting adventure with multiple encounters, probably enough material to get my players to second level, and if not to second level, at least most of the way to second level. It's going to introduce them to the game, and that took us, like an hour? And that was slow because I was recording. The lesson is you can do this. You can do this in 45 minutes on a weekend, and you don't need... look, I made this easier on myself than I needed to, but you don't need to do that. You can print out, if you were doing this for your game, I would say throw together some notes, throw together some names, print out the bread battle page, print out the Raiden White's pages so you have them in your notebook. That's all you need, man. You don't need to, I'm doing more work than anybody else needs to do. One more thing I want to talk about is treasures to hand out to your players. I think pretty early on, I want to give my players some cool rewards. Now, one of the things I want to think about is what are some things they might be interested in later? So I can look at maybe some first and second echelon cool magic items that they can build, they can design and have constructed as part of respite activities. And I can just be well, let's throw some of the material components for those potential things in there to sort of whet their appetite. I also like, throwing out fairly early on, a leveled magic item that's going to do some cool stuff. I don't think I'm going to do that with this adventure, but maybe the first time they really whoop on something that feels epic to them, that's got a proper, I don't think a bread battle has a proper lair, but something that's got a proper lair, something that's been there a while, something that has a head, so it can think, that kind of stuff. I don't need to know those things now, though. I can just sort of hack that together later. In fact, one of the best things you can probably do is let your players get to the loot and then say, all right, I don't know what's in there. I'm going to roll it between now and next session. I'm going to look through the tables. I'm going to figure out the cool stuff that's in there. Right? You guys just take it back to town, and as part of your respite activity, you guys are going to look through the loot and figure out what to do with it, and then they'll be super excited, and maybe if you're very lucky, between that session and the next session, they'll be oh, I hope it's this, I hope it's this, I hope it's this, right? This is the kind of thing I want to do, and they'll give you good ideas, and you can don't put all that in there, don't be dumb, but maybe put some of it in there, put hints, put clues, put maps. In closing, I think it's pretty easy to start a first level draw steel game. This is no more work than I would have done for any other game, and you can do substantially less. So get yourself some books and get yourself some D10s and some D3s and just go play with your friends. Have fun. It's going to be awesome. You're going to be good at it. If you hated anything I did, or if you liked anything I did, or if you have questions about anything I did, or if you want to complain about the way that my face looks because it is currently almost 2 a.m. and I am tired from editing videos, then you can throw it in the comments. I will have links to the Draw Steel stuff in the doobly-doo, although if you're watching this video, you don't need those links. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do more of these, but I might. Maybe I'll do prep for this whole campaign. That'd be fun. All right. Play, draw, steal. Trans rights. Don't forget to be awesome.